I'm excited that there's so many people online with us today. So about our webinar today, I get the opportunity to rub shoulders with acupuncturists all the time, whether it's on the phone, when I travel all over the world, I meet acupuncturists wherever I go. It's kind of fun. I've gotten to the point where I'll be in an elevator somewhere and people will say, hey, you're Kimberly, I know you. Or if I answer the phone, people will say, hey, you're Kimberly, I read your article. And funny thing is, when I decided to move to Miridia, Idaho, I thought I was going to leave the big realm of knowing a lot of acupuncturists and I was going to live in a small town and run a small practice. But when I got here and started working for Miridia Technology, it's been amazing to be able to rub shoulders with all of you. And I have to say that one of the reasons that I feel like I am a successful acupuncturist is because of the many acupuncturists that I know. So I'm about to share my screen over here, and I'm going to tell you why we decided to do this webinar, or why I chose this this subject. So we're going to talk about, yes.
But I'm sorry, let me say, I'm just going to state two things really quick. I forgot to mention, I apologize, and I didn't want you to get started until I did. Number one, if you're having problems with the video feed, with the audio feed, the best thing to do is reload the browser window that you're watching us in. You can often do that with the reload command or with a little circular arrow that'll show up in your browser. Reloading the window 99% of the time fixes everything. That's number one. Number two, the little chat window that you've got over here, make sure that if you're having problems or you want to post a question, then post those questions over there, because part of what Kimberly told me when she was preparing was that she wants to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A today. And so post the questions. We're going to try to get to all of them. So sorry about that, Kimberly. Back to you.
Okay. So when I came up with the top 5 things, it was mostly just little things that I have recognized over the years that have made me more successful in my practice. And then I wanted to put that back to AcuGraph users on how they could be more successful. So I'm going to show you this slide here. This is a picture of me, or me and many of my friends, acupuncturists all over the world in different places that I travel to. So you'll notice the guy sitting in his chair with his brand new AcuGraph and his brand new book and the excitement of having a new AcuGraph. Some of these are college people that I went to college with, and I meet them at shows, and some of them are other AcuGraph owners, and we meet up at the same show over and over. And conversations typically go something like this. We will sit down together, we'll have a cup of coffee, and they'll ask me, Kimberly, what is new? What's going on in your clinic? What are you learning? What are you doing today? So this webinar is about the conversations that I have with practitioners when I'm traveling. It's about the conversation that I'll have with a new practitioner who calls me and says, I just got my new AcuGraph. I'm so excited. I just don't even know where to start. Tell me what you would do first. And it's conversations that I have with people who are like, I'm thinking about getting the AcuGraph, but I don't know if it's the right tool for me. I don't want to let go of everything that I already know and give it up to some machine. And then it's conversations with people who say, I have a certain style of treatment that I like to do. Can I still use AcuGraph? And if I'm using this different style of treatment. So this webinar was created as if you and I were going to sit down together and have a cup of coffee, and I was going to show you the things that I do in my clinic that I think help me to be more successful. And of course, AcuGraph is part of that, because I see AcuGraph as a big part of my success, but it's not the only part of what makes me successful. Obviously, it takes skill. And so I'm going to share some of those skills with you. So obviously, are you surprised to see number one? Number one is balance the graph. I have 5 things that I'm going to talk to you about today. And I have to, here's something I'm going to admit out loud online before hundreds of practitioners. When I first got AcuGraph, I used AcuGraph simply to measure a patient's progress. I wanted to show them that there was science behind AcuGraph, but I never, ever, ever balanced the graph. All I did was my own TCM style of treatment, and oh boy, that's what I did. And it was a couple of years before I actually decided to test the waters and balance the graph. So regardless of where you're at in the process, if you are a new AcuGraph user and you have a certain style of treatment and you want to use AcuGraph to teach your patients, show progress, great, it works like that. But if you want to trust me for a moment, I'm going to teach you something that will take you far beyond and make you more successful in your practice. And unfortunately, it took me 2 years to learn that. So why do we balance the graph? Here is what I've come up with at this point. What am I? I'm almost 6 years of using AcuGraph in my clinic. And AcuGraph takes a picture of what's happening in the body at a moment in time when your patient first comes in. It shows how energy is disorganized and scattered. It's a little different than thinking in the way of TCM. It's more of how energy flows from channel to channel throughout the body. And this helps me to show my patient that if energy is stuck in one channel, it's not moving to the next channel the way it needs to. And my job as an acupuncturist is to be an engineer and figure out where those imbalances are and help my patient to get better. So I just want to tell you that if you'll trust me for a moment and recognize that balancing the graph first is so beneficial. I'm really sorry that it took me 2 years to learn that, but if you do this first, you will get better results. And the only way I know this is because I started getting better results when I balanced the graph. So here I've got, so you're going to balance the graph. What that does is it organizes the energy. It's simply treating the tonification and sedation points. I'm going to actually bring up AcuGraph here for a moment. If you balance the graph, you've got a baseline. Here's one of my very own graphs. Too much energy above. The green line is your baseline. Too much energy above the green line shows that there's too much energy in the channel, and so there's excess. Too much energy below shows that there's a deficiency, and it's just a simple way for me to explain unbalanced energy to the patient. I'm going to take that away. If you do this first, you'll get better results. And there are multiple ways to balance the graph. This picture that I have right here, you will actually find that picture in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You have multiple ways to balance the graph depending on which mode that you are clicking on, and we'll talk more about those later. I challenge you to explore those different options, but baseline is simple. Tonify the channel that is deficient, sedate the channel that's excess, and then treat the splits accordingly.
Hey, Kimberly.
And yes.
We have a poll about those different treatment types. Did you want me to go ahead and put that poll up now, or are you going to be talking about those in a minute?
No, that'd be great. We want to know if you're using the different treatment types, right? All righty,
I'm going to put up a poll here then, just to ask which treatment approach you use the most often out of those different treatment types. Go ahead and vote while Kimberly's explaining, and back to you, Kimberly.
Okay, so what I want you to recognize is you don't have to do it the same every time. If balancing the graph for you is using the baseline graph, perfect. Use the tonification and sedation points in the baseline graph. If your patient has back pain and you want to treat them face down, then use the back shoe points. If you want to balance the graph by treating the ear, maybe you're going to do some other type of treatment and you're going to quickly balance the graph by treating the ear, use those points. And then we've gotten to know this as the Fratkin style, and we call it that because I learned a lot of this from going to a training with Jake Fratkin. So I'll call it the Fratkin style for now, and I'll tell you more about that. But just recognize, I'll bring AcuGraph again. However you want to balance the graph, you decide. If my patient is face down and I want to do back shoe points to balance the graph, and they've got low back pain, I'm going to add the back shoe points. So the main point to take home from this slide is do whatever works for you on a particular day. You don't have to do it the same every time. So here's what I do in my clinic. I've been doing AcuGraph for a very long time. I started out just doing, well, we know how I started out. I started out doing nothing. And then I started doing baseline, and then I've developed some other ways that I treat. Couple years back, or a couple years into working at Miridia Technology, I wrote a blog series called I Am Convinced, and there's 4 parts to it. And it helps you to understand why I started treating the information I saw on the graph. It has to do with this book called Introduction to Meridian Therapy by Shudo Denmai. I love the thought process of thinking of acupuncture in the way of the channels instead of just TCM theory. So this book was really helpful, and so I'm just going to give a couple recommendations. I'm not going to teach you everything about this right now. This is a way, if you want to be a more advanced user and you've gotten the basics down and you want to be more advanced, I suggest you read that blog series and you make a decision from there. Let's see.
And Kimberly, the blog series link, Cameron just posted that over in the chat window over there. So if you're looking for that blog series, you can grab that and bookmark it right now, and people can go read that. So thanks for that.
Okay, so that is the basis for why you need to balance the graph. Now I'm going to teach you, what I do. So I'm going to give you a couple of take-home hints or tidbits that you can use today in your practice if you want to. And you'll learn why if you read the blog series. So in a more advanced style of treatment, sometimes there are many channels to balance when a graph is imbalanced. I click on the yin-yang graph, so not baseline. So after I graph, then I click on yin-yang, and these are the channels that I focus on first. I focus on the deficiencies. First, I treat the deficiencies. So I will treat the heart channel deficiency and the pericardium channel deficiency, and then I will treat the liver excess. The way I treat right now, this is enough to balance the graph. There is work to be done with these channels on the yang side, and I'll talk more about those later, but simply balancing the graph, you can balance the graph by focusing on the yin side. So that's your first helpful tidbit. Your next helpful tidbit is sometimes I get phone calls from practitioners and they tell me, yeah, I don't like to balance the graph because I don't like to treat points like heart 9 or kidney 1 or pericardium 9 or bladder 67. Those are painful points and my patients don't like them. And honestly, that's probably why I wasn't balancing the graph in the beginning. If you can treat those points though with electrical stimulation, you can treat them with laser, so there's nothing wrong. They are still very good points. But something that I learned along the way is if you want to treat, if you have a deficient channel, you can treat the tonification point, and that's what shows up in AcuGraph for baseline. I'll show you that real quick. We will go to a baseline treatment, and the heart channel is deficient. Heart 9 is the tonification point. Pericardium 9 is the tonification point, and that is the point that shows up. But you could also choose the source point to balance that graph, so, or to balance a deficient channel. Again, with an excess channel, you can treat the sedation point, which is the typical point that AcuGraph suggests, but you could use the source point to balance that, or you could use the she cleft. I'm going to show you in AcuGraph how you can differentiate that. So notice heart 9. I'm going to click, and it says, or the heart channel is deficient. Heart 9 is the point that AcuGraph suggests on the baseline. I'm going to click on the channel. If you want to use a different point to balance that graph, I'm going to use the source point. I like to use the source point for the heart. And notice here in the treatment plan that heart 7, even though it suggests heart 9, I'm choosing heart 7. Let's choose the bladder channel. Instead of bladder 64, 5 for the sedation point, I would rather treat the she cleft point. And so I'm going to add that into my treatment plan. So common points are listed here, and you can quickly make that change if you want to. Let's see. What else did I want to tell you about that? So that is the end of number 1, balancing the graph. I've told you why I balance the graph, why it's extremely important, and I have told you how you can make choices yourself in balancing a graph. So I would like to know at this point if we have questions up to now.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do I qualify to ask a question?
Oh, only if you're not going to ask me about not graphing for the first 2 years, because I did work for you, you know.
Hey, funny story, folks. When Kimberly started working for us, I swear I think it was a paycheck to her, because she fought tooth and nail to not have to use AcuGraph. It was funny. But no, that's a different story. My question, Kimberly, is this. In your tip number 1, you said, hey, you can balance the graph by using the yin channels only. So I wanted to clarify. So you're saying actually you can ignore the yang channels in that approach. You can ignore the yang channels, treat the yin, and then the yang will also improve. Am I correct?
Correct. That's the basis. I still am going to go back and talk about, but yes, yin follows yang. So if you treat the yin channel, then the yang channel will follow.
Okay, cool. And then the other thing, I guess what I took from your point number 1 is there's a lot of different approaches to balancing a graph, and you don't have to only do what the software says, but it's really up to you. You can choose kind of from a menu of different options, and obviously you do choose from the menu. And so am I kind of getting it right? Is this what you're driving at? Do it your way?
Absolutely. You don't have to. Now, it is very helpful to balance the graph. That is where I'll stand on my pedestal at this point. If you balance the graph first, you're going to get better results. So choose your best way.
Okay, and now Bill asked a question, if I may, during the presentation so far. He says, been doing that, but don't always get improvement when retesting. I guess the best way that I would answer this is, Bill, I'm glad you're here, because we're going to be talking about some other things that you can be doing, and perhaps we're going to give you some keys today that are going to help you see the improvements that you're looking for. Would you add anything to that, Kimberly?
I just want to be sure that Bill isn't retesting immediately after the graph. He needs to be waiting 24 to 48 hours to retest.
Oh yeah, great point. Great point. Thanks. Well, let's move on to your question number 2. I mean, not your question, your point number 2. And then meanwhile, folks, if there's other questions, go ahead, type them in the chat window. Back to you, Kimberly.
All right. Let me go back to my next screen. All right. So now we're going to talk about palpating the channels, and I think this is going to help answer Bill's question. So many of you know that before I was an acupuncturist, I was a massage therapist, and so one of the skills, oh, you're not seeing my screen yet, are you? You're just seeing my face.
Yeah, we're seeing your face. Not that we're complaining.
That's good. Okay. Now you can see my screen.
There you go.
Being a massage therapist before I was an acupuncturist, palpating the channels was something that I was very good at. And when you balance the graph on what we've already said up to this point, you can take care of 80% of a patient's problems just simply by balancing the graph. Because energy is flowing the way it needs to, lots of issues will fall off hand. But when you have stagnation that has been in a channel for a very long time, which is causing chronic conditions, you have to be really good at opening up the blockages in those blocked channels. So at this point, what I want to say is when you balance the graph, you organized energy so that energy could flow from channel to channel, and you did a quick cleanup. You put everything away, you have everything moving nicely, but and energy is moving, but you still have to go in and deep clean the areas of pain and stagnation. So after I balance the graph, I can go in and work on the shoulder pain, or I can focus on the headache, or I can focus on the mid-back pain. And this is really important to recognize. We get a lot of practitioners who say, oh, you mean I just have to do AcuGraph and my patient's going to get better? No, You have to know acupuncture. You have to know whatever else it is that you do in order for your patient to really get better. And so that's what I'm sharing is some of my favorite things. So my favorite screen to click on for palpating the channels is the energy cycle. This is how energy flows from channel to channel. Notice here, we started with the lung, we work our way all the way through, we get to liver, and then we go back again. So that's a great spot to decide where you're going to palpate, the channels that are excess. And this is where you can focus on those yang channels. Often it's those yang channels that are where you get tendinomuscular pain. So I just explained that. This is where we're focusing on the excess in the channels. Notice small intestine moves to bladder, sanjiao moves to gallbladder, large intestine moves to stomach. This is where you want to palpate. I'm going to show you how I use this clinically, and here I've got an example patient. This guy, I'm sure you've seen patients just like this. This guy has a lot of excess in the gallbladder channel. Their pain might be in the shoulder, it might be in the hip, it might be in the glutes for sciatic. They might be getting occipital headaches or headaches in the temples on the side of the head. So go in and palpate. Palpate for those areas of pain in the channel. And then what you want to do is focus on an area further down the channel. So my favorite, if my patient had pain in the gallbladder channel, and even let's just focus on focus on a temple headache. They've got a headache in the temples. I've already balanced the graph. Now I'm just working on channel. I'm going to palpate further down the channel at gallbladder 41, 42, 43. It's probably going to be excess somewhere in this area, and this area is going to be tender. I will put a needle in one of those points, or treat, if you're using laser, if you're however you're treating. I personally would put a needle. I put a needle in this point, and then the next channel is liver 5. So I would want to palpate the liver, or it's not liver 5, it's just liver. I'd want to palpate the liver channel and open up energy in the next channel as well. Liver 5 is a favorite of mine because liver 5 is the luo point, and it takes energy from the gallbladder channel and moves it to the liver channel. It's like a secret passageway. And liver 5 just tends to open up the channel in a beautiful way. So now look, if you go back and you palpate the channel again, the patient will be able to recognize right away, like, wow, your acupuncture really works, because I can ask them what's happened in the temple, what's happened in the hip, what's happened in the shoulder. And even just going back and palpating, you're going to feel that stagnation just resolve. And this is how your patient gets better twice as fast. Literally, your patients will think you're amazing. They want to know how you did that. They get off the table thinking that you've done a miracle. And really, all you've done is follow channel pathway theories. And I mean, you have done a miracle, but this is how you get patients to come back and they stay. I believe this is the end of, maybe there's one more. So if you do it this way, I promise hands down that you're going to get better results. And I know people buy AcuGraph because they want to be more successful in their clinic. Yes, balance the graph first, but get really good at palpating and recognizing problems in the channel. So that is the end of number 2.
So can you go back one slide for us?
I can. There you go.
Yeah, okay, that slide just brings me a lot of joy. I just, sorry. Well, but I do have a couple of questions for you. First of all, okay, so your point number 2 about palpating the channels, my question is, which channel or channels do you palpate? Obviously, you're not going to do all 12 of them bilaterally. And so that's question number 1, which channel? And I think it was the channel that's the most excess is what I got from your gallbladder demonstration. Number 2, which side? So can you address that?
Yes, I want to see if I thought I had made a screen. There might be a secret slide that shows up in a little while that's in the wrong spot that talks about this. So if I'm going to palpate the channel where there's pain, I mean, the patient obviously came in with a chief complaint and they have pain, so I'm going to palpate that channel. AcuGraph helps me to actually recognize where there's stagnation, so I might palpate that channel as well. So if they're coming and they have pain in a channel, I'm going to palpate the side of the body where the pain is. So if you have a temporal headache on the right side, I'm going to palpate on the right side. But if you're coming in and you have gastric issues, stomach issues, and I'm going to palpate the channels bilaterally down the stomach. I'm going to palpate above the chest. This, can you see here? This is a really good area that shows me that there's stagnation in the stomach channel. And then I will palpate further down the channel, down the leg, and get to stomach 44, treat stomach 44, and then come back and I will treat this again, and the patient will be like, wow, how did you do that? And did I answer?
Yeah, yeah. And then the other question, Zoe posted a question. She says, this part is really interesting to me, but I'm a little confused. How do I know which points I should use with channel palpation? And Kimberly, if I understood the presentation, you're palpating for the tenderest points on the channel, and often it'll be remote from where the chief complaint is. Like in your example of the temporal headache, it was down at gallbladder 43, 44. And so you'll find the tender point and needle it, is that correct?
Yes. So this is where I'm thinking more in TCM theory and based on point theory. The second point from the end of the channel is a clear heat, clear fire. So I try to go really distal down the channel. And so that's why stomach 44 for the stomach channel. That's why gallbladder 41, 42, 43. My goal is to pull energy further down the channel and then get it to move up the next channel in the process. So if I were working on stomach 44 and I was finding that tender point, putting a needle, I probably would palpate further up the spleen channel because that's the next channel, and I put another needle on the spleen channel, and then I will have created movement through both channels.
And when you say next channel, you're referring to the energy cycle where it flows from channel to channel. And so sometimes you will look for pulling it into the next channel to break the stagnation in the channel that has the stagnation problem, correct?
It's like pushing water through a pipe. If the gallbladder channel is backed up, I want to push stuff through the gallbladder, and then I want to move it up into the liver channel and make sure that liver channel is flowing so that energy can move the way it needs to.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to your third point. Thank you.
I want to say thank you for noticing all these questions, because I am more focused on my presentation than looking at the questions right now. So thank you.
Don't worry, I got your back.
Okay. All right, we're going to go back over to my next screen here. So let's see. Clinical experience. Okay. The other thing that I really like to do is add auriculotherapy into my treatment. I was very lucky to be able, it was one of the first projects when I started working at Miridia Technology. We took Auriculo to, we've taken it to multiple levels since then. It was Auriculo 1 at the time, and now we're at Auriculo 3D and continuing to grow with Auriculo. I love studying auriculotherapy. I think it's a very effective treatment. And when people purchase AcuGraph, they get very excited. Oh, you're not seeing my screen. Hold on. So people will get very excited when they buy AcuGraph, and they'll say, "Oh, good! It has auriculotherapy in it. I love that." And they are. It's a good thing to be excited about. But what they don't realize is that there is a very big difference between AcuGraph auriculo points and Auriculo 3D points. So I'm going to explain the difference in those right now. When you're in AcuGraph, and let me bring up AcuGraph real quick here. So in AcuGraph, when you click on the little ear in the left-hand corner saying that you want to treat auriculo points, you'll see point numbers, like you'll see liver 8 or heart 9 or stomach 41. If you actually click on that liver 8, an ear will come up and it'll be the liver 8 on the ear, or the heart 9 on the ear, or the stomach 41. The point is that there are multiple systems for auricular therapy. If you're using AcuGraph, the system for auricular therapy that is included in AcuGraph has to do with channels. There are channels that run through the ear that are very specific to channels that run through the body, because that's what AcuGraph is about. And the point that AcuGraph will suggest is the tonification point or the sedation point for that channel on the ear. They are very specific to balancing the graph, and they have nothing to do with body points. So you're not going to find the big toe point in AcuGraph, and you're not going to find the shoulder point in AcuGraph. It has nothing to do with body parts. It's very specific to do with channels. So if you're in Auricular 3D, on the other hand, Auricular 3D is filled with symptoms, body parts, systems like the endocrine, the digestion, and those points are very specific to more of a branch treatment, and they have nothing to do with balancing the graph. So you can't choose points from Auricular 3D to balance the graph. If you are in AcuGraph and you're finding ear points, they are very specific to balance. Let's see. So here's the difference when you're looking at the screen. If you're looking at Auricular 3D, here's your jaw pain. And there are many protocols in Auricular 3D. And maybe if you don't have Auricular 3D, here's the thing, the take-home message on this. You really should have both. If you only have AcuGraph, you should add Auricular 3D. Hopefully the rest of this section of my presentation will show you why, because I'm going to show you a little helpful tidbit on how I use it. So many of you have seen my video through YouTube regarding shoulder pain and how I use shoulder pain to seal the deal. Recently, I've really been exploring with, I had a patient with an occipital headache, and I came up with just a new way of thinking. I've been doing a lot of research on auricular lately because we are looking at doing some expansion, so I've been studying it, and here is what I learned. So first, I opened my Auricular 3D, I found the occiput point. So here was where the occiput point was. I used my Stim Plus, I found the point electrically, and I treated that point. Then, what you should recognize about ear points is that if you are treating the front of the ear, where the point actually exists, then you are treating the tendons, bones, ligaments. You know, you'll find C1, C2, C3, you'll find all the thoracic all along the spine here. So that's what you're treating there. But if you will find tender points on the back that are very close to the point that you're treating, this particular patient I was treating occipital headache. So all of these areas, this yellow, they were on the back of the ear, and they were in relation to muscular areas that would affect that region of the occiput, so all the muscles. Anyway, the point is, occipital pain, as I was palpating the back of the head, treated those ear points, and the pain just resolved immediately. So I use this at the end of treatment all the time. I use Auricular 3D. I use Auricular 3D at the end, and this is how my patients walk out with that little tiny bit of lingering pain, and it's gone, and they leave with a smile on their face, and I love that. I think we are done with this section. Let's see. All right. Any questions on this section?
Something that I'll bring up, you know, one of the benefits I have working where I work is that when I need treatment, then I can ask Kimberly and she treats me. And I'll point out that, yeah, she will go through the ear, she will find the points and she'll treat them here and she'll put ear seeds on there. But when she talked about the back of the ear, it's literally straight opposite, come around to the back as if you were pinching like this. Hope you can see that. If you were pinching like that and you did the front of the ear and then around on the back of the ear in the same spot. And so when she treats me, I'll often end up with ear seeds on both sides of the ear. And very effective. So hopefully that was clear from the presentation. What she's saying is whatever's on the front, sometimes mirror it on the back, and particularly if it's tender back there, and that is the musculoskeletal side of things back there. Am I getting that correct, Kimberly?
Yeah, but just let's add one more element to it. I used to think that it was the exact point mirrored right on the back, and that one is always very effective. But sometimes there are several others on the back because there's more muscular areas that are affecting that one point on the front. So explore. I'm asking people to explore.
Explore, okay. For tenderness and treat what you find.
Someone just asked, why not use needles? Oh, absolutely use needles. I mean, Stim Plus is one of my go-tos because I typically do it at the end after I'm done with treatment and I'm sending the patient home with ear seeds. But there are a lot of videos that we've created, and we can give you more information about that. And I'm pretty sure we have advanced training already on the auricular and how we're using it. All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, let's hit point number 4. This is great, Kimberly. And I'll also add, from a timing perspective, it looks like you're right on. So thank you for the nice pace.
Thank you. All right. This is a quick, simple little tidbit that I have recognized. So in the beginning, when you book a new patient, you can typically get them to pay for that first visit. And then I have found that if I book them for a series, a multi-pack, book several visits that very first day, and I tell them, I will be able to get good results with you, but it is going to take a series of visits. We are going to reevaluate after your fourth visit. They are tied to the commitment. I've already told them it's going to take time. I'm not giving them permission to say, oh, we're just going to try this once and see how it goes. I've told them things could get worse before they get better. The graph could get worse before it gets better. We are going to work through several layers of problems. So booking a series of visits is absolutely crucial. Recognize that in the first 3 to 4 visits, it is your key time to get referrals. This is when people are so excited about what you're doing. This is when they're telling all their friends. I never let my patient leave without handing them 2 to 3 business cards and telling them that I expect them to give them away before they come back. So that is really helpful. Booking the multi-pack is helpful because now their appointments are already scheduled. I don't have to reschedule appointments at the end. And then it gives me time to prove myself. So here's your helpful tidbit regarding this. I have found that in AcuGraph, in the notes section, I literally record. Today, they paid for 3 visits. Today was 1 of 3 paid. And then I list them in the notes section so that when I see the patient the next time, I remember. And I remember where they're at in their progress. And it's just a helpful, because I only work a couple of days a week in my clinic and it's a very busy clinic, I am the receptionist and everyone else. So this has been a helpful thing for me. Here's a little trick also you may not recognize. Let me show you. I can't show you because I can't bring my AcuGraph over to the other page. When you're doing your notes, recognize that you can make the text tiny, small, medium, and big. And I always make this text extra big. And so it's bold and bright and it shows up to me quickly and easily. Let's see. Any questions on the multiple visits? I think that's pretty self-explanatory, yes?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit because I know you can handle it. I often hear these practice tips from people that are, do this, book that, etc. And sometimes you get the feeling that they're really dreaming, that they're saying, I wish I did this. How many people, what percentage of your patients would you say you actually book for a multi-visit package in the way that you're saying? And be straight with us. I know it's not going to be 100%. What percent do you think it is?
I would say, percentage-wise, I would say half of my patients are wellness patients, and so they come in once a month. I've trained them to be wellness patients. As far as new patients, I'm just not even going to deal with them if they don't do a multi-pack. I know what it's going to take for them to get better, and so I'm going to say 100% of my patients will do a multi-pack, because that is what it's going to take. If I haven't seen them in a while and they're coming back and they just got a tidbit, something that I'm working with, I'd say 70% of them will do a multi-pack. Sometimes they just want to come in for a quick fix.
Okay, great. And then there's Jared asked, he says, Kimberly, how much time do you spend with each patient? And then also Khalid asked, how long do you keep the seeds in the ear? So if you could address those two things. I
will. So you're seeing my screen and not my face, right?
Yeah, let's see your face.
Let's see my face while I'm trying to figure my screen out.
We see your face. Go ahead.
Okay. You wanted to know, tell me again.
How long do you spend with each patient?
If I have a new patient, I am 90 minutes. And an existing patient is an hour. So follow-up visits are an hour, and new patients are 90 minutes. When I have a new patient, I don't overlap with any other patients. When I have follow-up patients, then I will have 2 rooms going at the same time. So every 30 minutes, I'll have a new patient come in.
Okay, so you're actually 30 minutes in the room with the patient, and then probably 30 minutes of needling time while you're treating the other patient, correct?
Right. I'm probably 20 minutes in the room, and then, if I have to run their credit card or.
Yeah, you've got administrative tasks in between. Got it. And then how long do you keep seeds in people's ears when you tape the seeds on?
So those I'm sending them home with. And if I am, sometimes patients will leave those in for a week before I see them next time. I do ask them to take the seeds off the day before they're coming to see me again, so that the ear can be fresh and I can find whatever active points need to be found that day, and that it's not inflammatory because the ear seeds. So I ask them to take them off the day before they're coming. So I will have them keep them.
Okay. And then Spiker asked, he said, are you using the Stim Plus to be specific, locating by sound? In other words, point locating, are you using the Stim Plus for that?
Yes, I'm using the Stim Plus to find the electrically active point. You can also use a probe and find the tender point. You don't want to go in and push too deep when you're using the probe. You kind of want to work your way along a zone and find that point that's the most tender. But for convenience and fast and easy, I use the Stim Plus. I love it.
Okay. And then the last thing, Suzette said, do you discount for the 3-pack?
I do. I offer a $10 discount per visit if you're doing a 3-pack.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thanks for hitting those questions. Let's go ahead and hear your point number 5.
All right, point number 5, multi-treatment options. Okay, so I'm going to give a disclaimer before I talk about number 5. There are a lot of things that I'm going to share here, and not a lot, but a lot of things that are going to pique your interest. And I'm not going to be teaching about all of them here. I want to, my point of this is to teach you that needles do not have to be the only way that you treat. I do use needles. I love needles. I'm a TCM practitioner. I was trained with needles. I think I get great results with needles. But
we're not seeing your slide again. Is there a slide up?
It is.
There it is. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So some people hate needles. Sometimes there are things that are more effective than needles on a particular treatment. And I really feel like combining acupuncture with other techniques, because I'm adding acupuncture in, it all becomes an amazing, beautiful combination. So I use a lot of techniques in my clinic, and I think it's important. If you want to be the best of what you do, then you need to have options, and you need to research and figure out which options will actually balance a graph well. So the things that I'm going to show you on the next slide, I'm not going to teach you all about all of them, But I am going to give you the opportunity to let me know things that you would like to learn from me in the future. We'll be talking about that in the end. So you already know that I use the Stim Plus. We talk about that a lot. And you already know that I use laser. Recently, I wrote an article for Acupuncture Today talking about percussion therapy. And it's a combination of vibration and percussion. And I decided that I wanted to try this technique out in my clinic. And I found when I started using this technique that I was getting better results than if I wasn't using it. So when I added this technique in, what would have taken me 6 visits to complete for the patient, now my patients are getting better in 4 treatments. Would love to teach about this some more in the future. For now, that's what I'm going to tell you about it. Another tool that I use in my clinic is the ArthroStim, and I use this to sort of like a trigger point. I'm using acupuncture points, and I'm using acupuncture point theory, and find that I get really, really good results with that as well. And then another area that I have been expanding into is frequency-specific microcurrent. Love many of the things that I can do with that as well. So, but do I balance the graph first? Yes, I do. I always balance the graph first. I love acupuncture, but these are other resources that I use. If you want to learn more about the vibrocursor, I wrote an article recently for Acupuncture Today, and it's called Percussion Therapy, an Experiment. Cameron will put a link up for you right now so that you could you can link to that article. We've got a website going where we're getting people to go to the website if they want to know further information about this, and if they would like me to teach a class on this, which we've already had an overwhelming response to that. So I use other things. You can use other things to help in your treatment.
And I put up a poll over on the side of your screen where we're asking people to vote. Tell us which of these techniques or devices are you more interested in learning about if we teach a seminar or webinar on them. These are all tools that I can tell you from experience, Kimberly treats me, highly effective things that she does with them. So which ones interest you? Go ahead and vote over there. Let us know, folks. I'm
going to bring my face back here. And so I noticed Greg, he says, as a chiropractor, I use the ArthroStim and the vibrocursor on every patient. They are very effective. So the funny part is I come in as the TCM practitioner, and I am actually, because I rub shoulders with all of you, I rub shoulders with physical therapists and naturopaths and chiropractors and acupuncturists, and I actually learn techniques from you. And I'm a strong believer that if you add acupuncture to any other theory, that treatment is going to be better. When I use these tools, I don't use them like a chiropractor would. I use them in relation to acupuncture theory and acupuncture channels and pathways and, you know, expelling damp. I have lots of different, I'm coming in with a TCM mind, but thankful to the chiropractors who have developed these tools.
Very cool. All right. Do you have anything else in your presentation, or are we going to the Q&A now?
I don't think. I guess the only thing I have in my presentation is I want to know from you what you would like to learn next from me. I literally, when we come up with what the acupuncturists want to know and what we can do in our live trainings, what video trainings we can do, how we can better the field of acupuncture, it all comes from your comments, your suggestions. I had a practitioner call me this morning, and Kimberly Hoover, I wonder if Kimberly is on today. I asked her to make sure she came to the webinar. She's a new AcuGraph user, and we were talking about scar tissue release and emotional release, and, you know, light bulb went on. I'm like, oh, those would be great to teach about. So I want to know from you what it is you would like. I want you to take my email address and I want you to save it. Feel free to even send me an email today. Tell me what you thought of the webinar, but keep my email address on hand. And when you have thoughts and ideas of how we can better help you and serve you, then I want to know about it so that we can, so I can add it to my list of many amazing things that we can help acupuncturists with.
Cool. Listen, there's a couple of questions, Kimberly, if you wouldn't mind addressing. Zoe said, what kind of symptoms do you see along an excess meridian compared to deficient? And then there was a question about how frequent are your patient visits? Is it different for acute versus chronic?
Okay,
and so on. So could you, could you start addressing those?
Yes, I can. In fact, I will. All right, I'm going to start with Zoe. What kind of symptoms do you see along an excess channel? Along an excess channel, that's where you're going to have pounding pain, throbbing pain, aching pain, acute pain, pain with movement. A deficient type of pain would be somebody who's weak. I find that I get better results with excess pain. Deficient pain is a whole nother ball game on how to treat. You really have to build up the deficiency within the person to resolve the problem. You can get some relief, but working with the deficiency first, I find, is key. Let's see. How frequency are your patient visits? Is it different for acute versus chronic? When I have a new patient, I tend to, because I only treat 2 days a week, I've been on the once a week theory for quite some time, but I am finding lately, I find those first 4 visits are so crucial, and I want to treat a little more often. So if I can treat them twice within that first week, and then bump them to weekly after that, it depends on how much time you have. But yes, I do treat them closer together in the beginning. And my goal is always to teach them how to become a wellness patient. And wellness patients come in mostly once a month. Others will come in more frequently depending on their lifestyle. Let's see. I like the devices. So Morena says, I like the devices. They are all great. How do you get reimbursed for all those services? Personally, I don't bill out for individual services. I bill out for my time. So if you are with me for an hour, that is what you're being charged for. And then I use whatever tool is at my disposal. But I don't do insurance. So I guess if you were an insurance practitioner and you wanted to bill out for individual things and it would help the amount of income that you brought in, then it would make sense. But to me, I don't do insurance at all. So I don't have to deal with the time that it takes to bill the insurance company. Let's see. I think, unless I'm missing something, I think that I have gotten all of your questions. Cameron, do you see that I'm missing anything? Looks like you've answered several questions.
Kimberly, there's a couple that I see here. Somebody said, can you post, it says preposterous, the 5 tips list, please, but I think it was probably post 5 tips list. And let's find a way to do that. Maybe we'll, when we post this webinar as the webinar follow-up, we'll post it with a handout with your 5 tips or something. Would that be all right? You think you can make something like that for us?
Sure can.
Cool. And then Marina says, I like all the devices. They're great. How do you get reimbursed? Oh, you already talked about that. Zoe says, I've treated 2 stroke patients. Both of their grafts had very excess in all meridians. First stroke was in a wheelchair. The other one was walking, but has a lot of pain along one side. What's the best plan of treatment for a stroke patient? So yeah, the questions around here are easy, aren't they?
Yeah. So actually, my first approach to that would be exactly like I taught you in step 1 and step 2. I would balance the graph, and then to deal with the excess channels, I would treat them accordingly. More than likely, if the patient has a lot of excess channels after the stroke, it's probably a phlegm damp kind of condition. And so, I mean, how do you really deal with phlegm damp? You can change diet, and you can do herbs, and you can treat magical acupuncture points that deal with phlegm damp. But the reality is phlegm damp is stuck in the channels. And so you want to resolve the problems in the channels. Then I might add some TCM points to deal with the phlegm damp. But you have to take it as it presents week by week. That's why graphing is so important every time. Because if you just took your graph on one day and said, okay, this is my approach to treatment week after week after week, then it's not as effective because you're not seeing what's happening that day. So I would take what I see that day and I would treat.
Okay, and it looks like Zoe followed up, said all the meridians were red off the charts. How do I needle that? And so basically, I think for that to be the case, she's saying everything would be high, everything would be excess.
Well, if they were all high, then it'd be impossible for them to all be high. There has to be some differentiations in order to get a high check.
I think what she's saying is everything is high. I mean, everything is up, not all red necessarily, but everything is elevated.
Yeah, I'd suggest at this point going back and reading my information on the 4 blogs about I am convinced, and then, you know, you'll have to develop your theories on how you're going with your advanced care. I take the yin channels and I treat them, and then I deal with stagnation in the channel. And then my next level after that is to delve into nutritional, herbal, those types of things.
Okay, and it sounds like Zoe still has some questions about these specifics. I'm going to suggest that she email you with some specific graphs, maybe send them over to talk about, so you can get a better idea of what she's looking at. She says they were all high, and the graph did not give me any treatments. So
maybe she can share that graph with me. Cameron can add my email address over into the comments so that you can email me personally whenever you would like. I'm happy to answer questions. And also, well, let's just say this, you're going to get the most feedback from me if you're part of our Facebook user forum. So AcuGraph 5 users, we want you on the Facebook user forum, because then we take questions like this and we share the answer so everyone can read them and so that they're searchable. So maybe Cameron will add a link for that as well.
Awesome, awesome. Lauren says, have you ever found the AcuGraph to be wrong in its diagnosis? Can you speak to that when you find something different with, say, tongue and pulse than what you find on AcuGraph, Kimberly?
Absolutely. Good to see you, Lauren. Let's see. What I have found with diagnosis is AcuGraph isn't wrong in diagnosis. AcuGraph is coming in from a different perspective of how you might be looking TCM, or from a TCM perspective, it's going to tell you how energy is flowing in the channels. And so I can graph someone and a year later graph that same person and never seen them. And there are certain similarities that will show up because of that patient's constitutional nature. So when you come in and you graph with AcuGraph, I do not find that they're wrong. In fact, oftentimes I do find that they match up with TCM thought processes, and it doesn't take away my diagnosis and thinking for TCM, because that is the roots of where I came from in my education. But it does give me information on how things are working in the channels and quick treatment of that, and then I move on to other things. So the quick answer is nope. I think AcuGraph is very, very consistent on what is happening in the body, but it may not match all of your other diagnostics if you are thinking from a different direction.
I would add, and thanks for that, Kimberly, I would add, I get asked this sometimes, and from a technical perspective, I'll tell you this, it's kind of like a scale. You know, if somebody's on a diet and then they step on the scale and they haven't lost weight, it's obvious. Sometimes we all want to say, oh, the scale must be wrong. Well, you know, or not. Really, probably the scale is actually reporting the accurate weight. AcuGraph measures a specific electrical property. It can't mismeasure. The measurement it gives is accurate. The question is, what does it mean? And so if you're finding there's a discrepancy between what you're feeling in the pulses, for example, and what you're seeing on the electrical measurements, that's a cue to you that there's probably more investigating that you need to do and find out why the discrepancy. And when you dig into that, that's where the gold is found. That, oh, wow, if I think about this a different way, now it falls into place, and there was something that perhaps I was missing. But we are a little bit past our time. I want to, Kimberly, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
I was going to add one more thought to what Lauren had asked, and that would be AcuGraph practitioners need to learn to be consistent in their graphing, and we've had other webinars and other trainings on that. And so as you are consistent in your graphing, you'll find that you get very good results.
Okay, excellent. Somebody, looks like Joe sneaked in one last question. I'll just address it really quick and then we need to go. Joe says the PI score is at 39, but the patient feels good. What does the PI score stand for? PI stands for PIE, Personal Integrated Energetic Score, and it's a statistical model of balance. It's possible for somebody to be not very well balanced and have a low PI score, but not have symptoms yet, because all of that imbalance is how they're adapting to what's going on in their body, and thus far they're still adapting and able to handle it. When they can't adapt very effectively, the symptoms are going to manifest. And so when I see a score like that, the first thing I tell the patient is it's a good thing we caught this before you started to get sick or before you started to get symptoms. We're going to nip this in the bud. We're going to treat it. It's going to balance out, and we'll prevent this from ever becoming a problem. And from that perspective, patients really appreciate seeing, wow, you can actually catch things before they become a problem for me. Isn't acupuncture tremendous? So appreciate that question. And Kimberly, I'm going to say thank you for the tremendous presentation today, for your 5 tips. We'll look forward to your handout and also to the recorded webinar so that people can review. Let's not forget Kimberly's address. Her email address was up there. And
the Facebook forum.
Yes, if you have any questions, go to the Facebook forum, go to the email address. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what topics you'd like us to address. So that's all for today, folks. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. Goodbye, everybody.